Hello, hello. This is LEGO's latest version of a Star Wars original trilogy, X-Wing, the T65 version. And they've made a bunch of these in the past, and they keep making new ones because people keep liking them. Rather than just keeping the old original designs on the market forever, they try to improve. This has a bunch of changes. I personally thought the previous kind of normal scale version was already looking pretty good, but this looks even closer to a proper realistic design, a little bit closer to what you see in the UCS models that really go for that, that correct set of proportions. So I'm happy with the overall look of it, and the build is definitely a fair amount different from previous X-Wings, including even the most recent T70 ones from the sequel trilogy. Not the biggest fan of the look of the engines there with the garbage cans that are used, or the barrels that are used just in the center sections of those. Notice the rubber bands. There's a rubber band there, there's a rubber band on the other side. They're in white, which goes really well with the white color scheme, the white primary color of this X-Wing. So that's already an improvement over most of the ones that they've done. Actually, most of the vehicles and builds that they've done at all that use rubber bands. This actually has a completely new mechanism for, 90% new mechanism for changing the angles of the wings, the S-foils. Now this, I'll show you that in just a second. This does have 4 spring-loaded shooters at the wing tips, which are just there, and you can just leave those projectiles out if you want. It also has the 2 stud shooters, right, closer to the cockpit there. Those represent the proton torpedo launchers. Inlets look really good here, and the cockpit, well, that's a printed piece, printed on 3 sides. Open that up, and inside you have an actual seat. That's something they haven't done for a while, as well as a fire extinguisher back behind there, just in case things go wrong a little bit rather than going wrong completely. And there's a printed console at the front. No flight yoke or anything, but best thing about the cockpit is the space just behind it, because that is designed to accommodate a single astromech droid in the correct orientation with shoulders abreast. Very nice. So let's look at the key thing that is new with this version beyond the many small details. Just fold that little skid up most of the way. The mechanism to control the S-foils is no longer something that you rotate somewhere, but now this little tan piece you see here at the tip is just the edge of basically the actuator for the S-foil controls, and you push that forward. So that opens them up like so. That looks really, really good right there. That looks so good. So good to me. And this actually has 4 rubber bands involved in total, 2 on either side. You saw the ones at the back, but it has ones at the front as well. They're just hidden behind the inlets a little bit, and those distribute the force. So rather than all the force being just at the back, these are equidistant from the little yoke inside there that rotates to separate the S-foils. So you see how that rotates right there. It's actually not making direct contact, flat to flat, or at a perpendicular angle. It's actually just along the edge, just riding the edge of the underside of that plate that you see right there, and it's symmetrical, so up at the top it's doing the exact same thing. It's very smooth how it feels. It feels very right, and then it just locks at the end, holds itself in place, locks here, holds itself in place, and it works really well. You no longer have a bending force in the wings because of the two rubber bands per pair here. And it just all goes together well. The only thing that's bad here is the fact that you have this large space up on the top that's dedicated just to that mechanism, and so this is open. You have that whole slot. This part doesn't look bad. Of course, all the other detailing around the edges looks pretty good as well. They use just a handful of stickers for the sake of detail on this, but a lot of real building with actual pieces, including the use of the sand blue and the light yellow color here rather than tan that they've used before. But this, just has that, basically it's just a hole right there, and it needs to have that space open. That can certainly be modded to take up less space, and you can also bring up the height of this just a little bit, give a little bit more of a hump in this area to cover that up, especially if you take off the tip of the actuator there. But that's really the only con that I see for this. Otherwise, this is a positive evolutionary improvement for the design. I think that they've done a good thing here. Plus, there's one additional bonus that's built into it. Doesn't look very good, honestly, when it's deployed, but you have this axle that sticks down when the S-foils are in attack position with the cone at the end. That is a plunger that works against the mechanism, so it just resets it, and the intention there is that you can close it by just pushing here rather than pulling back, or you can just set the whole thing down on the ground. I'll go ahead and bring the front skid back down and just set it down on the surface below. Closes up the wings for you, so you don't need to do that. You know, it's not necessary, but it's a thing. You can leave that axle out, I believe, if you want to. If you don't want to see that hanging down, by default it'll just hang kind of loose. Yeah, easy enough to leave out. But yeah, there are a couple of unsightly things here, but overall it's a big improvement in my opinion. I also so much appreciate the use of these pieces back here. They're absolutely perfect for the shaping at this point. And it's good that they have the 1x2 by 2/3, or actually 1x2 by 1 slopes with no studs on top. Here's how the whole thing looks from underneath, and it's pretty well detailed there as well. They have builds that are very similar for the S-foils all the way around, so they didn't get lazy on the underside here. You know, they just don't have any stickers on them, but there's still just as much detailing that goes to those lower ones as goes in the upper ones. That's good. This set has 2 pilot figures. Of course, Luke Skywalker on the left, and on the right with his immediately recognizable mustache is Biggs Darklighter. Now these do use identical torsos, identical hip pieces, identical leg prints, but those look perfectly fine. But the helmets are new. That is a dual molded helmet for each, different prints obviously, and they have actual orange, trans-orange visors with actual shaping. I personally don't like the little transition just around the corners. I don't know why it bugs me, but the transition between the transparent orange, like for instance right here, and the white, that little corner right there, bugs me. But other than that, from any normal kind of distance, these definitely look great. Lego always does an excellent job with the prints on these Rebel helmets. I think they might be a little bit deep. Maybe the ridge along the back might stick out a little bit, just in terms of their proportions relative to standard heads. Makes them look a little bit larger than I think they ought to, but that was a subjective decision, and some people will disagree with me on that, I'm sure. There are the alternate faces, which there's not that much difference between them for either character, but there's enough. There's a little bit more. No, I was gonna say there's a little bit more for Luke, but not really. So fairly subtle differences, but 2 good figures. And here are the helmet prints as viewed from the top. Again, very good job with these pretty much always, at least for the past, I don't know, half decade or so. Of course, there's another R2-D2, and they have made so many R2-D2s, and it feels like they're making them more and more frequently, but this is definitely a case where it needed to be included. Even if a lot of them have been released over the past handful of years, you need to have a proper R2-D2 in an X-Wing set that comes with Luke Skywalker. So this is a correct inclusion, and as usual, I get the bad luck of the wonky head print. That's just my luck, always. Biggs Darklighter's astromech is R2-Q2, or was R2-Q2. There's a little bit of a funny effect on the fronts of the legs for this one. Not everybody will get that. It's just where the little particles of metal kind of clump together a little bit. Sometimes it comes out a little bit weird, as did the printing on this one. So with this one, the white print is angled forward a little bit. The black looks pretty level. It's angled back just slightly. The silver print is angled forward slightly as viewed from this side. Let's see what it looks like over here. Yeah, it's pretty consistent all the way around. So it's like 3 different stamps at 3 different angles. Oh well. So this is not the first R2-Q2 we've gotten, but it is the first one that we've gotten in a Rebels set. By which I mean Rebel Alliance, not Star Wars Rebels. So the new one is on the right there. The old one is on the left. The prints have changed a little bit, but the biggest difference between these two, I mean, you can see the the fine details, especially around the base that are noticeable. But the biggest difference between these two is that the new one has the dark bluish gray, base kind of can, and then the old one had the silver through and through. I think the silver was probably more accurate, but you get a cleaner look when you don't have the variability of all of the metal flake and how that flows in interesting ways that create that marbling effect. Now, the older one was sold as an Imperial astromech, and I believe in universe it's supposed to be the same one. It was originally an Imperial astromech right up until the early events of A New Hope, and then somehow it infiltrated and got itself picked up as a rebel alliance sympathizer or something, and got paired up with Biggs. So just an interesting little bit of backstory on that one, and we do get 2 different variants now for the collectors. Now, strictly speaking, there is one major problem with putting Biggs Darklighter and his R2-Q2 into this particular variant of X-Wing. That's the set of markings that you have on the wingtips here, because these are red 5 markings. You can very clearly count the 5 little stripes there. Lego thought of that, though. They thought of it completely. They give you not only 2 sets of stickers, but 2 sets of these 2x3 tiles onto which to place stickers. So you can just swap this out for proper red 3 ones for Biggs. And I appreciate that. That's something that's totally done just for Star Wars nerds, for folks who are more serious, and yeah, that's very nice. That's good thinking, and it didn't cost them very much to do that, but I think it'll make a lot more people happy than leaving that detail out or getting it wrong for half of the scenarios. This is being sold at the same price as the last 2 normal scale X-Wings, the sequel trilogy ones, and this just has all of their design improvements, their improvements over the 2012 original trilogy version, plus more with some of the finer detail elements. Of course, updating it for the or changing it over for the in-universe older design of X-Wing. Plus, this also has the improved design for the, at least in my opinion, and in the designer's opinion, surely improved mechanism for the S-foils. So, I want to say if you already have the 2012 normal scale X-Wing, you don't need this. But if I had just the 2012 normal scale X-Wing, and I was a big fan of the X-Wings, and I just wanted to have a normal scale Lego X-Wing in my collection, I would personally not be able to resist upgrading to this, because it does really feel like an upgrade. If nothing else, just from the appearance, just on display, it looks so much more correct, so much more real, so much more accurate, and being able to put the astromech in the correct way, just so much about this is just so much better. So I really think that Lego has done, or the designer in particular, the primary designer for this, has done a really good job here. Don't see it as a must-buy if you already have an X-Wing that you're perfectly happy with, but for folks who don't have an X-Wing, or who haven't had one for a long time and still want one, well, that's why they continue to sell sets or bring out new sets that are redesigns of existing ones, or things that they've made models of before, because not everybody has everything that they want, and new kids are being born all the time and such, and yeah, it's just good to have continuously better things on the market. And this is a case where they have improved, fortunately, without reducing the size or anything like that. So yeah, I think that this is all good. I really don't see anything here that is a step back. Those are my thoughts, and I'm sticking to them. Thank you for watching. I will talk to you again as soon as I can.